Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Centric. This week's show, I talk about TV shows that are crime dramas. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Bosch Legacy, Season 2, Episode 3. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Okay, so some interesting developments in this episode. The storyline did not go the way I thought it would in some capacities, but somewhat in others. More specifically, Maddie's story is kind of going in the direction I figured it would, once again, after such a traumatic event. But the Dockweiler stuff didn't. I mean, that doesn't mean that still won't. I mean, it's going to always be a part of the story because it's part of Maddie's story. But, like, Dockweiler directly, that might be something we deal with a tiny bit this over the course of the season, or, like, it kind of weaves in and out of the storyline every once in a while. We'll ultimately have to wait and see because Harry does bring it up at the end of the episode that Dockweiler's sentencing is coming up, because we don't know how long it's been since like Maddie's rescue. Like, you'd assume it's been like a couple weeks to maybe like a month or two because she's already back to work, but granted, she's working a desk job. Once again, I don't know if it's like a psych eval thing or whether that's just standard practice across the board. Might be a combination of the two, because I'm surprised we didn't do a psych eval situation. But yeah, until she's a little while in, back into the flow of things, she's working a desk for now. Good, because it's like, right, you shouldn't be back in the field after such a traumatic thing, because Vasquez she's happy about being able to kind of be outside of uniform and stuff, but obviously her and Maddie still have their good connection and stuff like that. But either way, since I am on the topic of Maddie, because this episode has like 3 or 4 different storylines that seem two are at least intertwined. One might be, we'll find out, but then there's Maddie's storyline, which is going to be about her. It's a storyline of her own, but what she's going through, because we end up finding out that she's looking into this lady's jewelry that was stolen. She left it in a specific, like a Kate bag, and it's like thousands of dollars worth of jewelry that were just kind of snatched up. And she did the legwork to kind of get it like found out. And so handed it over to detective, she handed it over to Vasquez, who handed it over to the detectives leading the case. And the lady was kind of a dick about it because she's like, I want my jewelry back. It's like, well, it's evidence, so you'll probably have to wait till like the whole case plays out. And so she's like, no, I'm not even pressing charges. Who can drop the charges? It's like, well, either the lead detective who's investigating it or the DA, because it's like, can't really do anything about it. It's not like you can't really drop the charges because it's like the person's a thief. It's no longer about you. It's more so about the fact is that the cops are kind of involved now. I mean, I know you can drop charges in some cases like that, but I guess in this particular situation, you can't really do it. But either way, the fact is, I don't know if that's going to be a storyline in itself or not, of just like, right, she's just so adamant about this thief, like she wants her jewelry back. I'm like, is there something suspicious going on there? Because at first she was kind of like, oh, I don't believe you'll actually get my jewelry back. But then you did. But then like she was kind of more so focused. I mean, the jewelry, yes, but also like she was like, oh, can I get my bag back? I don't know if it's supposed to be like, oh, she's kind of an entitled douchebag, or whether it feels like there's going to be more to that story, but I don't know. I mean, because obviously it plays a role in like, hey, Maddie's trying to get her legging, like her footing back, and she's ready to kind of, get out there in the field a little bit, but also because she was talking to Paulina about that conversation about like, how'd you know you were ready? And she's like, I didn't. I just basically, it's been a little while, so I just kind of took the plunge, and I did it, and kind of working this case felt good and Paulina was like, because it's a change. It's like, because like staying stationary, it's just when the thoughts get to you, those feelings catch up to you. So it is this thing of being able to kind of change up things. So, and a big change we saw this episode is obviously like she's staying at her dad's place for now. I don't think it's an excuse she's making where she's like, oh, no, I just don't want to, places are expensive. I don't make enough to really compensate for that. I mean, there might be truth to that, but I am also wondering, is there some part of her that is a little scared, I mean, once again, like that is enough to kind of make you scared, like to fully be on your own again. But, Maddie's like her dad. It's like she's not going to like show a lot of that. I think she lets a lot more. I think she wears her heart on her sleeve. I mean, let's not like kid herself. Like I've said it before. Like, oh, we don't get to see Harry vulnerable, but it's like dude wears his heart on his sleeve too. You can pretty much tell what he's thinking and what he's feeling, even when he tries to hide it. But I feel like Maddie's heart is on her sleeve even more than him. So I'm. The fact is that it's hard to say with that situation or whether or not she is is it just an expense situation, not really being on your own right now, or is it the comfort of being in it, not being alone and just having your dad with you? But she's now sleeping with her gun by her bed because she doesn't want to get caught off guard again. It's like that is going to stay with you of like, yeah, I'm never going to be caught slipping again. I mean, and it's something that I even really think about until we got that recap at the beginning of the episode. I was like, oh man, like there's a lot of parallels between Chandler and Maddie. I mean, to be fair, Maddie's always liked Chandler anyway. Like, those characters have always been a little similar in some capacities, but the trauma they've been through and the scars they've kind of had left in, like Dockweiler for Maddie and Carl Rogers for Chandler. So she might be the, like, Bosch, and this was something I was talking about previously in a previous review where it's like, Bosch is going to try and do what he can, but because he knows how to deal with people who've been through that. But it's a complicated thing when it's your own daughter. So finding that middle ground of like, you want to help her, but you don't want to push her too much. And your training tells you not to push someone too much, but it's also your daughter, so you might want to push a little more, but you also want to be hands off. It's such a delicate balance because of it would be with anyone, but it's even harder and even more of a delicate balance because the person in question is your daughter. Like, it's just, you as a parent, you want to do everything you can for them, but at the same time, it's like, I don't want to push you too much. You're still in a delicate enough place, but I also don't want to treat you too delicately because I don't want you to feel like you can't handle this. I just want you to know I'm here to help you. I'm here to support you in any shape or form, no pressure type of thing. So, because it is that conversation of like, it's like, oh yeah, Dockweiler's sentencing is coming up. Do you want to put out your victim impact statement? She's like, no, I don't see why. He's like, well, it might help you articulate your finish. She's like, I'm not going to do that. Like, you can not necessarily defensive, but it's just kind of like, I just want to move on. Just kind of, she seems to have that mentality, which is, I just want to move on. I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to deal with it. I'm living my life. That's all there is to it. So, but I think that will probably come back around in some shape or form over the course of the season because it's necessary for her to get some form of closure and articulate once again her feelings, because this ties into Harry's case, which we'll talk about in a little bit. The victim, like Harry didn't want to show Maddie any of the pictures, but she wanted to see. She's like, I'm not a delicate flower, I'm a cop. But even upon seeing him, she's like, yeah, it is pretty disturbing. And she's like, I'm looking at that, realizing, like, and she was asking, like, right, was she assaulted, like raped? And it's like, yeah, she was. And he's like, and Maddie's like, yeah, that could have easily been me. And he's like, don't minimize. It's like, right, she was like, no, the wording she had used was like, oh, like that is horrible. And it's like, I'm lucky what happened to me, just only that in that capacity of like, all I was kidnapped. I was never assaulted like that. But, Bosch was like immediately like, don't minimize what you did. She said, no, I get it. Like what I went through was awful, but at the end of the day, it could have been worse. And seeing this photo and knowing what Lexi, the victim, the case Bosch is investigating, went through. And even Maddie was like, why did you take this case? And it's like, well, there's extenuating circumstances in the episode, but also for him, it is a situation of when he saw Lexi, it made him think of Maddie. Like, he's like, when I see her, I saw you, because that could have just as easily been you. And that like really resonated with Maddie because she was feeling like that could have easily been me if the circumstances were different. And to know that, it's, once again, it's not just something she's carrying. Like, it is that thing of like, I think sometimes, and not trying to falter in it, it's just that thing of when you're going through something, you don't always kind of realize like, oh yeah, like I'm not the only one that carries it. You realize it, but it's just, I think that moment, it really kind of connected her and her dad where it's like, I'm feeling the way I'm feeling about it. And obviously you're carrying it. And for Bosch, he would never be like, oh, trying to like invalidate her feelings with his own feelings of like, oh, I'm like, it's like, because for him, it's like my feelings are a third, fourth matter at this point. Yours are first. Fact that matters, yours are the only ones that matter right now. My feelings need to be pushed aside because your well-being and your feelings are what are what necessary. So it's just, like I said, such an interesting storyline. I'm really interested to see like kind of Maddie's journey through that, and obviously like her and Bosch, like how they balance that out and figure that out. So that's going to be interesting. We pick up a little bit with the Carl Rogers storyline, interestingly enough. I guess that's why they did the recaps the way they did. I mean, because also I also have to remind myself that we are watching Bosch Legacy and its structure, or at least release schedule versus the original show, which was, hey, they'd give you a massive recap like that at the beginning because, well, all of the season got dropped at once. Whereas in this case, it's like, no, all of the show is, on a weekly enough basis release schedule. So it's like, right, they're going to like dole out the recaps on a necessary basis of when the storyline resonates and means the most per episode type of situation. Rather than kind of giving you all that recap all up front where, like they'll give you, obviously like any more traditional TV show, of giving you pertinent recaps at the beginning of each episode because the ones that kind of resonate most storyline wise. But either way, the reason I was bringing it up because, like, I was like, yeah, we didn't really get any of that in the recap for, like, episode 1 or 2, but now we are, because some of the carryover is that the feds are, like, dropping a subpoena on Chandler, and they also eventually do it to Bosch, but it's like, was there a subpoena on Marty or Matthew? And it's like, no. So now the question is one of them working alongside the feds? Ultimately, they look into it, and it turns out it's Matthew, which obviously he knows, because this is all about the pipeline. This is about Carl and everything last season. So it's Bosch, Chandler, and Mo who are in the thick of this. The question is, did they find out about Matthew? Like, did they already have something else on Matthew and using him to get to the trio of Mo, Harry, and Chandler? Or was it something like, why? How did he get in the middle of all this is the question. Because on the FBI side of things, we also have, I guess he's going to be like the main investigator is I don't know what the title him. I guess he's the head of this FBI unit, or he's the one that headed this investigation, played by Anthony Michael Hall, which I was like, oh, holy crap. I feel like there was something super fairly recent I'd seen him in. Maybe I'm being stupid. I could have sworn there was something fairly recent I'd seen him in, but I don't remember off the top of my head now. But I mean, either way, it's dope from the beginning. Obviously, Bosch has always had his interesting run-ins with the FBI as a whole. But I'm curious to see, wasn't it an FBI agent he was working with? I mean, I know there's the one. Isn't he still with the FBI? Matthew Lillard's character? I don't remember. There was that agent. I don't remember if that was the final season or was that the second. That was either season 6 or 7. I can't remember. There's that FBI agent he was working with. I'm blanking. I believe it, if I'm not mistaken, it was Featherstone, from the actress who played Featherstone in Preacher. Wasn't that the character's name in Preacher? She was the FBI agent, but I can't remember if that was season 6 or 7. I want to say that was actually 6, but it might have been 7. I don't remember now. Either way, like, he has his positive connections with the FBI, but his run-ins with the FBI haven't always been too positive. So that's definitely going to be an interesting thing this season. It's like, well, how do we figure this all out? So Chandler is trying to set up the whole attorney-client privilege situation, and she gives him $1, and I love Bosch being like, is that literally the same dollar from last time? She's like, yeah, I kept it for good luck, and he's like, swell. I was like, I love that literally keeping the same dollar from our little arrangement. But basically, she has him looking into the case she's working on, where Lexi, as we were talking about with the baddie storyline, she was murdered, and the suspect was a guy named David who was arrested, and Chandler has represented him in the past, and now she's going to be his attorney, which she believes he's innocent. But then we find out he had lied to her, which you're never supposed to lie to your lawyer, especially when your lawyer's defending you. It's like, I need to know everything. I need to know the truth, because if you don't tell me the truth, I can't give you a proper defense if I'm getting blindsided by stuff. So it turns out he wasn't home 4 months ago like he said he was during the murder. He was actually off getting high. Because there's other storyline elements that are happening. I'm like, we got introduced to that storyline when those two people are meeting up and that dude James got kidnapped. I'm like, what is this storyline? Well, it ties into it because he's David's dealer, and they were together the night of the murder. So it's like, right, he's David's witness, so it's like alibi. So you're okay. So he got kidnapped, so that's 100% on purpose. But then you also find out there's another storyline we get and peek into because this guy is hooking up with a lady. I don't know if she's a lady of the night or what the circumstances is, but now he's getting blackmailed, and it's like, yeah, your wife or your daughter or whatever is going to find out about this, and he's like, all right, what do you want? It's money, but they looked at each other, so feels like they might want more. So we'll have to wait and see. It feels like that storyline, definitely the James stuff is tied into the Lexi storyline because, in fact, she was murdered because, not because, David's, like, alibi was being taken, so, James, and he got kidnapped, so it feels like he recognized who it was because when he looked out the window, he was telling the guy he was with, he's like, yo, don't worry about it. It's all going to be good. So the thing is Matt going to admit like, hey, so James might have gotten kidnapped. Why were you there? Because I thought that was like I don't know if I misread that situation. Because it could be a thing of, well, he's David's dealer, but I don't know if Matt and, because Matt was the guy he was meeting with. I don't know if before James got kidnapped, I don't know if that was like a meetup in like a drug way. Because I interpret that as like a prostitution thing. I thought that's what James was. I was like, at first when him and David were connecting, I was like, oh, like, are you sleeping with a guy behind your wife's back? But it's like, no, he said that's my dealer. Not unless there is more to it, but it could easily be that it's like, oh, I do. It could have easily been a drug deal, but like I said, I interpreted it initially. I was like, is James like a male prostitute? But it's like, no. Like, it still could be applicable. We'll have to wait and see. So yeah, like I said, that and the guy getting blackmailed storyline seem like they're all connected to it. Because it seems like if this is a frame job, it seems pretty thorough because his DNA was found in and on Lexi. So you're like, interesting. Like that's where it's like, maybe that's where James comes in. Because he feels like he was taken because he's a loose end. Why not? I mean, I guess if you kill him immediately, it might draw more attention. Like I said, it could also be a thing of because he has a part in all of this. Either he's going to show up dead later on because of the whole loose end thing. But like the reason why he was like, oh, I'll go handle this because he knows who it is. He's part of this like blackmailing scheme and stuff like that. Maybe. I don't know. Because they did bring up the storyline element that David was clean until 6 months ago. So it could have easily been a situation of like, that was all set up just to play the long game. To be fair, because the murder happened 4 months ago. So it's like, that could have been a 2-month setup for like them kind of playing the long game to like play until, they would get to the murder like 2 months later and end up using David as their scapegoat. We'll have to wait and see how that plays out. But circling a little bit back to the Matthew of it all, because they know Matthew is working with the feds and stuff, and he could sink them and kind of screw them over, Chandler's plan is to feed him misinformation so that they could potentially catch the feds in an entrapment situation. I am curious why they're kind of going. I mean, the board that they have, it seems like obviously you got Mo and Bosch connected to Chandler and also to Crates and Barrel, which they're not too worried about it. They're like, well, we could always get on the stand and plead the fifth, but, which that could be like, pleading the fifth, can be bad on your resume, but for them it's like, well, we're retired now. We're retired, so what resume is that going to be put on? We don't, a stain of a fifth, plead the fifth, it won't mean anything about our records because that's already done. Forgotten but not, gone but not forgotten. It's like, no, forgotten but not gone. And it's just like, I love Bosch. It's just like, you two need some new material. Like the fact that they're so nonchalant, because it's like, yeah, I didn't really think much of. He's like, you didn't think much of blowing up a pipeline would be a federal offense. He's like, yeah, but I mean, I never thought like domestic terrorism type of thing. So they are so nonchalant about it. It's like our favorite knuckleheads. Our little knucklehead dynamic duo. I love it. I didn't talk about the fact is obviously they popped up last episode as well, helping out Bosch, with the whole, Rafferty situation, so. And because of that whole storyline, because I was like, right, I can't believe I let that slip my mind, and it's like, right, we're definitely not done with the Doc Wilder, especially when you add in the element of like, oh, he was raised in a cult. I'm sure that's all going to be used in defense at court and stuff like that. Of like, yeah, he was raised in a cult and the abuse he went through to try and like sympathize with. There's got to be an element of that playing because it's like we got introduced to Rafferty. I said Rafferty, his lawyer last episode. So I'm like, it can't be the end of that. Like I said, so we're probably going to get a lot more of the Doc Wilder stuff than I probably initially kind of thought. Like. Because I was saying, like, maybe it'll weave in and out, but I'm like, it'll probably be a little more of a bigger part of the season than I kind of was even giving it credit for. Once again, we'll see. But anyway, I kind of went on this huge, massive tangent because of the whole crates and barrel of it. And my point was, because of all those connections on the Bosch side, it all connects to Carl Rogers and the people he was connected to that are dead, but it was also the Russians. So I'm like, are your main target the Russians? And because of what Bosch and them all did last season, it kind of put the kibosh on your using Carl to get to them, so you kind of screwed them over, so that's why they're doing this? Or is there some other thread here? Or is it just a situation of where the Fed's investigating a crime? I know you had something to do with it. It's like, well, didn't have anything to do with Roger's death directly. I mean, obviously she wanted to kill him, and what is Chandler really guilty of? I guess it's like kind of like, I guess there's still a way to criminally charge her for being indirectly responsible for his murder, but it's like she didn't kill him. She wanted to, but she didn't. The Russians did, so we'll see kind of what the Fed's true aim and goal is with all of this and what they're up to as we dive in. You know, all that's happening while Harry's investigating this Lexi murder and finding out the true culprit behind it. And like I said, like untangling this web, you know, because obviously David and Lexi, there doesn't seem to be any connection, but it's like, who's the killer? Like, you can find out who the killer is and like how they might have met and when they would have met, obviously is a key piece to the puzzle. So it's definitely going to be interesting to ultimately see where all of this ends up taking us going forward into the next episode. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Get a good day, and goodbye.